What's good, friends list, episode 104 of the Gamecast coming at you. This week, we dial back the clocks to the 1930s, roll up our sleeves, old pal, and solve a particular mystery in out-of-the-blue game's Call of the Sea. From its reveal in last year's first gameplay showing of the Xbox Series X, it remained a standout to many indie fans to make sure to keep an eye on it to drop on Game Pass this past December. Does its unique art style and puzzle-based mechanics help it stand head and shoulders above similar titles such as The Witness? We dive deep into the mystery that takes place on the Tahiti neighboring island. Also, Phil Spencer helps ease fans' minds around Halo Infinite's placeholding holiday 2021 release window. A new hire within Microsoft's cloud-based game development division could have ties to Kojima Productions and much, much more coming up on the newest jam-packed episode of the Game Pass Gamecast.
Now the fun begins. Richard.
Stop! You violated the law.
Welcome back to another episode of the Game Pass Gamecast, your weekly go-to podcast for all things Xbox Game Pass, and PC gaming, including news, rumors, and conversations around them damn good video games. You can catch new episodes of the show when they drop each and every Friday morning on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, and all other major podcast services. So be sure to subscribe to us, rate us, review us, all that jazz wherever you get a podcast at, and follow us on Twitter at GPGC Podcast. Stay up to date with everything regarding the show, video games alike, and our dope giveaways. I'm your host, as always, Travis White, aka Travelus, on most internet platforms. Joining me, as always, Wait, where is he? What? Oh no, Mike's not here this week. It's actually just me. So this is a whole new different thing, a whole new ball of wax, as they say. So we technically will have another guest joining us. My lovely fiance Molly will be joining us to talk about a little game called Call of the Sea that we've been playing recently. That'll be a little bit later in the show, but currently Mike is on vacation right now. We're flip-flopped on opposite sides, and he was not able to have access to any of his gear while he was on vacation, so it's just me. Yeah, just me this week. You're stuck with me. So, anyways, though, yeah, just me this week. No Mike, he'll be back next week, but we can at least get into it. And I want to make sure I get everyone caught up with everything going on in the world of Xbox and video games in general before we get jumped into our big topic of this week, Call of the Sea, like I said. There's other stuff I got to talk about, but first, I talk about what I'm playing. Normally, this is where Mike and I have some banter or whatever, but he's not here, and I can't talk to the voices in my head all day. Well, I mean, let's be real, yeah. Anyways, though, but what have I been playing? It's weird because I just got back from the beach last Friday, so a week, technically, when this goes live. I'll be home for a week, so not just, but you get my point, where I came back, and while I was on vacation, I didn't really play a ton of stuff, just because I had my gaming laptop with me to record, the show and everything like that, and I had my Switch, but I didn't play that at all, to be honest, while we were on the plane. But I did get a clip for my controller, my Xbox controller, so I could try xCloud. But my service, which I had like at least 4G down there, didn't really work too well. And hotel Wi-Fi is buns, as everyone knows. I'm shocked we were able to record last week's episode without any hiccups on that end with how we were recording remotely. So, but I didn't really play too much. Came back this week, and I'll be quite honest, I played a lot of Ratchet & Clank, by myself, that is. When I was playing with Molly, we played, like I said, Call of the Sea. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. Finally got around to playing that, but outside of that, we started the Tomb Raider. I tried playing it before, but fell off of it because of something else came out. Not that I wasn't enjoying it, but I'm starting up with Molly, the first Tomb Raider game from the reboot of the Tomb Raider, the Square Enix Crystal Dynamics Tomb Raider series. And really enjoying it so far. We're not that far into it, maybe like an hour or two into it at the very most, but she loves when we play Uncharted games and things like that. So that was right up. I figured that'd be something we could play. You know, there's a couple of them if we want to keep going or whatnot. I've never fully played any of them, and I've only heard good things, especially if I like Uncharted. So that's obviously been right up my alley. But outside of that, it's been relatively quiet because I'll be honest, like I said, I've been playing a lot of Ratchet and Clank. Very good video game. If you do have a PS5, or if you're planning on getting a PS5, make sure that Rift Apart is one of the games that you buy, because that game is fucking excellent. And if you're a fan of keeping it in the realm of Xbox, Sunset Overdrive, there are definitely a lot of movements that it's funny with all of Insomniac's games. There's DNA across the board, and a lot of developers. I shouldn't say that, but just Insomniac, but because they've mastered movement and frantic movement and like the flow of movement so well across their games, it feels so much like Ratchet and Clank before even like the remake came out or anything like that. Like the DNA is so evident of the new movement style of Ratchet and Clank from Sunset Overdrive. Like you could just feel it. And even going into, Spider-Man and whatnot, but like for Xbox fans, like Sunset Overdrive, man, it's on PC too, obviously, but will always be kind of remembered as an Xbox One exclusive. There's so much DNA in that game. And even too, there is they show the energy drink that turns everyone into those things. It's within the collectibles, a little Easter egg that you can find of Sunset Overdrive, which is kind of cool, but I digress. So if you are eventually getting a PS5, do that. But we're not Sony shit. We're not going to talk about that all day. But anyways, before we head into our big topic, obviously I got to take you through Button Mash to make sure you guys get caught up with everything that's going on in the world of Xbox and PC gaming before we go in and talk about Call of the Sea for a while. But let's get into Button Mash. Kicking it off with Xbox boss Phil Spencer, as we usually talk about, says that Halo Infinite's development team is, quote, very committed to a holiday release date. Spencer made the comment while guesting on the podcast Dropped Frames, discussing how the Halo Infinite team was approaching the last legs of development, among other topics. Spencer says that the team is currently narrowing down the release date for Halo Infinite and already has a good idea for a launch window. Quote, we know kind of our range in a 3 to 4 week range, said Spencer. Quote, we don't have yet the exact day. There's some other things with some other game timing that we're just trying to look at. We'll have better clarity over the summer, but this isn't a months thing. This is just down to a few weeks, which is very reassuring. That's what a lot of people were worried about, I think, with Halo Infinite, and even after this E3, still seeing a holiday 2021 release date, knowing that it's already summer. We probably should be seeing a release date, especially if it's anywhere between, September, October. I think a lot of people were a little concerned about that. But knowing that they have an internal release date, and especially from a lot of the things that I've been hearing too, that they have that date narrowed down, they just want to really see how Call of Duty plays out and, when that's going to be launched. And not to mention Forza is coming out in a couple days into, or I think it's November 6th, something like that, is coming out, right. Forza Horizon 5 is coming out right then. Like, I'm sure they don't want to cannibalize either one of those. So, it's hard to say, but I feel, me personally, I'm thinking a November release window still. Like, I think it all depends on, like I said, Call of Duty. And if that sticks to in October, they're good right then. I don't think they're too worried about the cannibalization with Forza and Halo, because I think those are two very different audiences, but who knows? So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out, but good to see they at least have, that in mind. Moving on with more Halo, though. Halo developer 343 Industries is looking into massively increasing the player count of Halo the Master Chief Collection multiplayer matches, which is cool to see. Talking as part of an Xbox live stream, Sean Swerdsky, producer at 343 Industries, said, quote, we're doing some investigations on increased player counts above 16. That investigation is looking at increasing the player count to as much as 60 players in a match. Quote, Halo is epic, said Swerdsky. If we can add more people, which you can, but obviously with the performance on some of the other consoles, if we can add that kind of stuff to go higher than 16 in these classic games, and hell, get up to 40, 60, what I mean, that would be wild, end quote. Xbox Game Studios Publishing has hired Portal lead designer Kim Swift as its new senior director of cloud gaming. In a tweet posted earlier this week, the publishing arm announced that Swift's hire was to, quote, accelerate our innovation and collaborate with independent studios to build games for the cloud, end quote. Swift has a lengthy career at some of the industry's largest companies, going from project lead at Valve on Portal and designer on Left 4 Dead to roles at Amazon and EA. Most recently, she was the game design director at Google for Stadia, where she worked as a creative director on an unannounced first-party project with Play Vista Studios. And kind of following up with that, our friend Jeff Grubb over at GamesBeat, aka VentureBeat, says that Microsoft is getting serious about cloud-native games. To that end, the company's Xbox division announced today it has hired former Stadia design director Kim Swift to oversee cloud gaming collaborations with independent studios. Those studios will include Hideo Kojima's Kojima Productions if and when Microsoft closes that previously reported deal, according to our sources. So, a lot of discussion right now around the whole conspiracy theory around, Blue Box Games and their project Abandoned, if that's really Hideo Kojima and they're pulling another, marketing stunt over Kojima Productions like they did when they were with Konami, when Hideo Kojima was with Konami and did the Phantom Pain, the last Metal Gear Solid game. They did something, kind of similar to that in that degree, and there's so many different coincidences that it is interesting to see and be like, a lot of that does stand out. But in terms of their Xbox Game Studio, like in terms of this deal that it sounds like they're working on, that has been in the works before, any of this conspiracy stuff with Abandoned or whatever, take that out of it. But it seems like this was a move directly for Kojima. This was a move directly kind of aimed at that. And a lot of people, I think, had heard the rumblings of, hey, it's going to be a cloud-based game. It's going to be, they're wanting to attach a big name to this innovative tech that they're trying to use and trying to market. And, they're trying to want to get people on board with the idea of cloud gaming in a non-traditional sense. Obviously, cloud gaming in general is non-traditional, but you get what I mean. That they're wanting to bring in a big name to attach that, to get eyeballs on it, to get people to want to at least try it out. And obviously bringing in Hideo Kojima or partnering with him in Kojima Productions to do that gets people excited. So, it's interesting to see that this is going on with the whole conspiracy theory with, Abandoned and, that being a PlayStation exclusive and potentially the studio, who the hell knows? I don't know technically the bandwidth of Kojima Productions, if we're talking about a studio with 200 people at it, or if not more, and, it's an independent studio, but there is a lot of funding behind it and whatnot, and they've had a lot of success with Death Stranding, and, the name Kojima carries weight, that there'll be investors with that. That will never be an issue, but do they have the bandwidth to support two projects if that conspiracy theory stuff is, true or not? Or if this is a game that, isn't even in pre-production yet. It's just more so, hey, we want to get pen to paper for you to make your next project, or a project with us. So, and obviously, I don't know if any of the stuff about Abandoned and Blue Box Games, the conspiracy theories around that are true or founded or whatever you want to call it. I don't know if that is true. Who knows? We may never, I would think we're going to know one way or another, but it may just be Blue Box Games and it may actually be a thing. So let's see what comes out of that. But that game is a PS5 exclusive. So who the hell knows? So, it wouldn't be that game then if that's the case. So, this is, I think, Jeff trying to say, hey, obviously, no, here is what's going on with Kojima. It's not Blue Box Games. Like, this is it. So, and I feel very confident leaning into Jeff and knowing that his sources are trusted and he is trusted and everything like that. So, I think, even though there are a ridiculous amount of conspiracy or coincidences attached to the Blue Box Games incident or situation, I don't think it is I don't think it's it's tough to like. I trust Jeff in what he's saying, and that this is a move for that. And I think a lot of people who are within the Xbox ecosystem and who do cover Xbox understand that and see that as well. So interesting to keep in mind, but nonetheless. Anyway, so moving on, Microsoft. Their Microsoft Cyberpunk 2077 expanded refund policy is coming to an end next month. Microsoft has quietly updated its digital game purchase refund terms page to reflect a change in how it's handling Cyberpunk 2077 refunds. Xbox expanded its refund policy last December to allow anyone who purchased CD Projekt Red's latest RPG to refund the game in full. That expanded policy will end on July 6th. Quote, the team at CD Projekt Red continues to work hard to improve the experience of Cyberpunk 2077 for Xbox players and has made a number of updates. A notice on Microsoft's digital games refund page reads, quote, given these updates, Microsoft will be returning to our standard digital game refund policy for Cyberpunk 2077 on July 6th for both new and existing purchases, end quote. Following the announcement of Elden Ring's release date via its first gameplay trailer at E3 2021, George R.R. Martin, of obviously Game of Thrones fame, and also who is working on this or helping design the world, or being a consultant if you want, has confirmed that his work on Elden Ring had wrapped up years ago, supposedly. As reported by Eurogamer, Martin spoke to a local news station, WWTW, when visiting Northwestern University's Medill School of Journalism and discussed his career and his work on the much-anticipated Elden Ring. Quote, the game is called The Elden Ring, and it's a sequel to a video game that came out a few years called Dark Souls, which I think he's getting confused on. And it came out of Japan, Martin said. Quote, my work on it was actually done years ago. These games are they're like movies. They take a long time to develop. Basically, they wanted a world created to set in the game. They wanted world building, end quote. So it'll be interesting to see how much of an emphasis he does have on that. And as somebody who was a big fan of Game of Thrones, obviously, I'm hoping better than not, So, which I think is somebody who is teetering on wanting to say they're a Souls fan, because I still have yet to beat Dark Souls Remastered, but found a love and appreciation, I guess, for these games. More so a very much respected appreciation. And I always have, but more so now that I've started playing them and put in 40 hours into Dark Souls or whatever. Like, and saw, okay, there is a lot to go into this that is good, but I just suck at these games. So, that I would love to see more of this high fantasy compared to, and what it looks like. I mean, granted, it still does have a little bit of those grim elements to it, obviously, but it seems much more, Elden Ring seems much more high fantasy than, obviously, a Bloodborne. Dark Souls. Dark Souls is much more, I would say, gothic core, or not gothic, but much more like, it is medieval, but not as much high fantasy, I feel like. And I feel like Elden Ring kind of leans more into that. And obviously, Sekiro was, feudal Japan. So, but obviously, I'm hoping for the best for that. I'm a big Game of Thrones fan, and I'd love to see what Martin actually does with that. And, if we're able to tell his actual impressions or his touches on this game while playing it from a lore element. And I'm hoping, too, the way that they built this world and the way they designed this narrative is less traditional than most Souls games. And I'd like to actually get, not a linear experience or linearly, or however you want to say it, if that's even a word, told like a story, and not necessarily where you're supposed to, you find out more lore from the world from reading item descriptions, things like that. And some people love that, and that's great. And I think it succeeds in that aspect of telling a story in a non-linear fashion, but I think Souls games have the ability to maybe do that really well, and I'd like to see them try it. I'd like to see them, give a crack at that. So we'll see, but I'm still excited for Elden Ring. It's the most excited I've been for a Soulsborne game, so I'm ready for it. A new Sonic the Hedgehog game is playable in Minecraft, moving on to our next one, as part of the franchise's ongoing 30th anniversary collection. The Minecraft Sonic DLC pack will allow players to unlock environments from the Sonic universe while navigating obstacles and bosses to collect rings. Sounds familiar, right? The Sonic social media account revealed the Minecraft collaboration earlier this week. The teaser video, which you can see over on YouTube, showed Sonic and friends in the blocky style we've come to associate with Minecraft. The DLC pack features famous locations such as the Green Hill Zone and Chemical Plant Zone, as well as iconic characters like Knuckles and Tails. The DLC will let players, quote, collect rings, dash past obstacles, defeat bosses, and build momentum en route to a high score. So check that out when it's coming to Minecraft soon. Following an update that went live earlier this week, Marvel's Avengers players are reporting that their IP addresses are being displayed on screen without their consent. Reports of the bug being circulated earlier this week, with players posting screen caps of their IP addresses available for all to see. One player referred to the bug as, quote, literally shut the game off bad, end quote. Crystal Dynamics did put out a release of patch 1.8b, which says should fix an issue on PS5 and obviously Xbox as well, where sensitive information was being displayed on screen. This means anyone playing Avengers on next-gen consoles should be able to stream the game again without fear of revealing their IP address. So, knock on wood, everything should be good on that end, but yikes, that is not good. That is tough to see, because that is information you don't want getting out for random people, especially if you're on a stream to be potentially doxxed or this and that. Anyways, moving on. Call of Duty Warzone developer Raven Software appears to have finally fixed one of the Warzone community's most hated skins. The Call of Duty Battle Royale has received a long-awaited update version of the Rock costume for Rose, allowing the character to be much more easily seen on screen. The Rook costume, I'm sorry, I said Rock. I'm thinking Dwayne The Rock Johnson. The Rook skin, there we go, has been controversial since it was first released, featuring Rose in all-black clothing with black face paint. The costume featured no reflective elements, meaning that in darker environments, she could be rendered practically invisible. On top of that general frustration, the skin was originally released as part of the game's premium battle pass, leading to complaints that it was a pay-to-win mechanic in a game that professed to not include them. And finally, last but not least, it looks like WB Montreal is tooling up to work on a brand new AAA game, according to recently posted job listings. The Gotham Knights developer is currently wrapping up the Batman co-op action game, but PC Games N has spotted a job listing that might give us an inkling of what they're up to next. A listing for a senior gameplay/animation programmer seen on the WB Games Montreal website says that it is seeking talented individuals to, quote, work with its games development team responsible for a new IP AAA title. The successful applicant's role will include optimizing, quote, cross-platform gameplay systems and NPC behaviors, among other responsibilities like tuning ragdolls. As pointed out by PC Games N, the studio's website mentions that WB Games Montreal is, quote, focused on developing games that expand the DC universe in the interactive space. While that does not totally rule out new IPs, it'd be a big change for the studio to jump into a new AAA IP as the job listing suggests. So, that's all of Button Mash. Tons of new stuff to talk about. Obviously, like I said, we went over the Halo stuff. It's interesting to think about that, you know, we still don't have a release date for Infinite, but they're so confident that, hey, holiday 2021 is our release date. And like I said, I feel good about, we're for sure not getting September. October is a maybe, but I feel much more confident about a November release date. Obviously, you know, to give the team as much possible room as they need, on top of that being the month that would be the 20th anniversary of Halo. That makes a lot of sense to do that. And also, too, I do think releasing Halo before Forza I don't think either would cannibalize it too much, but I feel like they don't want Forza, even though Forza Horizon 5, I should say, I should specify, but Forza Horizon 5 had a ridiculously good showing at E3. I think, obviously, you put Halo in front of it, the shadow cast is pretty big. And I just don't think they want to do playground games like that. They don't want to do any of their studios like that. But I think the issue at hand there could be that Halo is this much more, you know, solidified IP. It is, you know, the face of Xbox. It is this game with legacy. It has a big anniversary this year, yada, yada. You know, so I definitely could see if we're going to get a release date around there. I think it's after Forza's release, which actually I can look up now, which I should have done before, but it is coming out November 9th. Okay. So maybe a 16th. I wouldn't be shocked at that. I don't think it'd be maybe a week after that. Maybe we're looking at the 23rd, but I think the 16th seems like a much safer bet. But who knows? It'll be interesting to see what kind of happens with that. But I don't think they'll want to cannibalize. If they're going to cannibalize anything, it's going to be Horizon 5. And I think they want to make sure Halo has the bandwidth to be able to do all that. Or, not do that, but also have the bandwidth to support both. And I think supporting Halo after the fact of Horizon lets Horizon at least get that time to breathe, have its room, and then, maybe 2 weeks later, boom, there you go. So that's Button Mash, ladies and gentlemen. A lot of good stuff on this week. Obviously, like I said, just usually where I kick it to Mike, hey, what do you think? And obviously we don't have that this week. So, but what we do have is a really special segment that I've kind of been wanting to do for a while and bring my fiance, my partner, my love of my life onto the show, Molly, and have her talk about some of the games we play. And specifically, we talk about Call of the Sea. Yes, the game that was shown last year at the first Xbox Series X partner showcase or whatever it was in May. One of the games that stood out to her that she really liked or really thought looked cool because of the art style and different things like that. She'll get into that when we talk about that right after this. But been wanting to do this for a while, so I'm interested to see what you guys think about that. We had a really good time playing this game, and I think if you haven't played this game, this conversation may open you up to that. So without further ado, let's kick it to technically past Travis, because I'm recording this part after that. So I recorded this first. So past Travis, take it away. Welcome to a very special segment of the Game Pass Gamecast. The first time ever doing this, really, with anybody but Mike, Adam, our guests or whatever, because we have a very special guest. Molly Stein, the love of my life. My fiance Molly is joining us today for a little special segment about a game we've been playing that I figured she'd want to talk about.
Well, mostly me.
Yes, I gave you the keys to the car this time. I let you kind of drive the car playing this one.
Yeah.
So what game did we play?
We played Call of the Sea.
Call of the Sea. That is right. Call of the Sea. A lot of you guys might remember Call of the Sea from the what was it? The Xbox third-party showcase or partner showcase for the Series X last spring, I believe it was in May. Whenever everyone got their hopes really excited and then everyone felt really underwhelmed by it. But they showed a bunch of games. That was one of them that stood out and was one that I know she was definitely interested in playing for a lot of reasons.
Well, I don't really look into many games, but when you were going through the Game Pass?
What is it?
That you have.
Yes, Game Pass.
Okay, I'm not the most qualified person to be talking on this show.
No, that's
not
true.
We were looking for a game to play, and I saw what you would call the cover of the game, I suppose, and it just kind of drew me in. I was like, click on that, I want to know more about it, just because I liked how it looked and I liked the vintage feel, so I automatically wanted to learn more about it, not knowing what it was before then.
Fun fact, the art you're talking about, it's called key art.
Okay.
That's a little inside baseball for it. Okay. What?
Maybe I already knew that.
I don't know, actually. Oh, you didn't know that? Oh, no. I'm so sorry. Actually, I'm curious. I don't even know if this game came out physically. I'm going to look that up real quick. Maybe? No, it did not. I don't think it ever came out physically. So, there you go. It's digital only, so cover art of it. But yeah, Call of the Sea. Got to play Call of the Sea together, which...
And for the first time ever, you actually watched me play it. It's usually...
No, that's not first time ever. We take turns.
I know, but this was the first time that I've played a whole game.
True. Well, together, I guess, is what you're saying. Because you play games on your own. You play through Bugsnax, and you got the platinum in that.
Yeah, ugh. Don't get me started on Bugsnax.
Yeah. Well, no, we can talk about it. It's a PC game, too.
Yeah.
So there you go. That's an Xbox show.
Oh, that needs to be a whole other episode, because I'll just go on.
We can talk Bugsnax all day with you, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But yes, Call of the Sea. And I guess really to start out, Molly.
Yes.
we play, and I guess tell people a little bit like how we play games, or like what kind of games you like, or like I guess what interests you that stands out that makes you want to say like, oh, I want to play this game, or oh, I have interest in this game, or oh, like this seems really cool for us to play together.
I think that there's a couple different factors. There could be one where I like watching you play games that have a storyline. So like Uncharted, or
whoa, Uncharted, what's that?
I know, I'm
sacrilegious.
Yes.
That's a PlayStation. No, I'm just kidding. You could talk about it.
Or Resident Evil, or anything that I can. It's like a story. It's almost like a long movie that I can watch, and
right.
You let me play sometimes, but it's mostly just me relaxing and watching you, and I don't have to sweat about it. But a lot of games that maybe we play together also, like the Telltale games too,
yeah, there
where
you go.
I have to, we have to make choices, which I'm not very good at. By the way,
I make those choices as well. Well, usually I take that back. Usually it is like, the way we kind of handle it is I'll steer the ship, you give me the directions, type of thing.
Yeah,
like I'll do the controls, and you do, if it's decision based, at least if it's like a Telltale game or the like, and a narrative adventure game or whatever you want to call it.
But what's the game that I like with the robots?
Oh, fuck, what is it? It's on the tip of my... Detroit, Become Human.
Yeah, I really like that one, but I remember at the end...
That is on PC, so we're good.
I looked it up, and they were like, this is the worst possible ending you could have gotten, so... Yeah, but, so those are the things that we like to play together, but just me personally, and these are PC games since you keep referring to that, is I love Nancy Drew. Ever since I was little, I've read Nancy Drew and I've played the PC games. And I want you to play a PC game.
I'm not disagreeing.
So really just saying that I like Nancy Drew, I love like mysteries, and I love figuring out like puzzles and things like that. Okay. So I guess when I saw the cover art for this, it intrigued me because I love 1920s style. And then when I learned more about it, I'm like, this is not only a mystery, but it involves a lot of puzzles. So it's three things that I really like in a game altogether, and that made me want to try it.
So a whole lot of stuff.
A whole lot of stuff, yeah.
And it's mostly mystery-based and stuff like that you're really interested in. So I guess if nobody's familiar with Call of the Sea, which, I mean, I'm sure, some of you may not be, but set the stage for it. Almost kind of like we do with a classic Game Pass Gamecast episode where, we're not going to do Cash Pass It Asset, anything like that, because I know Molly enjoyed this game, and I enjoyed this game. So we would recommend it, but more so, I didn't want to put that pressure on Molly. First time doing this or being on the show or doing anything like this, so...
Yeah.
So I didn't want to put that pressure on her to make a decision based on should people spend their money on this and whatnot. So we'll cut that, and we're just going to talk about it. But it'll be similar to that where I throw out some questions to Molly and me in general too, I guess. We'll talk about it. But, we'll just talk about the game and talk all the way through. But let's set the stage for it if you aren't familiar with the game. Call of the Sea is an adventure video game played from the first-person perspective from publisher Raw Fury and Out of the Blue Games developed. The game is set in the 1930s, and players assume control of Nora, which is acted by Cissy Jones, who must explore an island set in the southern Pacific to find her husband, Yuri Lowenthal. And if you are familiar with Yuri Lowenthal, you will know him from the Spider-Man games. He plays Peter Parker. And technically Spider-Man too, I guess, if you want to say that, who is excellent, who has gone missing after embarking on an expedition. The game does not feature a combat system, and players progress in the game by solving various puzzles. The game was announced on May 7th, 2020 during a digital event hosted by Xbox Game Studios. Call of the Sea was released for Windows, Xbox One, and Xbox Series X/S on December 8th, 2020. So the game's been out for a little over 6 months now. And it's a game that we've passed over a few times. I know I've passed over a few times that, not in the sense of, I don't want to play that, but like came on my radar and was like, yeah, I definitely want to get to that because that seems like our jam. And when it came out, being around Christmas and being around holiday season of releases, there were 60 other games that I wanted to play that were kind of on my radar. And obviously once we got into January, now we're getting early games that come out bigger games that come out earlier in the year now. In January and February really aren't that lull anymore that we usually used to see with games, but it kind of just fell through the cracks. So I guess you kind of already answered it a little bit, Molly, but I want to ask you, what made this game really stand out to you? Obviously, I know, listeners know, and you kind of touched on it a little bit, but like when you said, the box art stood out to you. You're like, oh, that's cool. I like that style. You like the vintage look of it. You like the aesthetic of it. When we saw the trailer and we saw what the game was, do you think like the aesthetic of it, the environments played a big part of you in enjoying this? Like, what stood out to you and what I guess of that aspect really, once we got into it, really stood out to you once we started playing it?
Well,
We're also using one microphone. I couldn't find my other microphone, so we're recording this like passing almost the boom arm back and forth. So there's a little bit of interference. My bad. Suck it up,
I just really liked how it looked on the cover art, and then when we watched the trailer and it playing the game, I did really like the setting. You are on this island. It's like a beachy feel, but it's also very ominous because there's a lot of different things in the setting. You're not really sure what's going on. The only thing you know is that your husband's missing. So when you get to the island, there is a lot of different like statues and contraptions and things like that. And it almost makes you feel like there's like a tribe there or something. It almost kind of reminded me of King Kong a little bit, just with like, that ominous unknown tribe living there. You don't really know what to expect. And, right off the bat, you have to start solving puzzles, and every puzzle is meaningful. It leads you to something else. They're not just there to pass time or anything like that. And I guess I just really liked the puzzles and that they were meaningful. They told a story, and that it made you want to keep playing and find out what happened to her husband. There was never a point that I'm like, I'm kind of sick of this, or I don't really care. Like, I just wanted to keep going and find out what happened.
Right. Yeah. That it kept leading you on. There was more stuff there. And that was one of the things I kind of like dug about it too, was the game was really good at leaving breadcrumbs where it was, or leaving small threads that eventually lead to a bigger ball of yarn that, you see the breadcrumb there for something else that is going to play in later down the road, but isn't pulled on necessarily yet. Or it's a good tease to know that something's right around the corner. Just when you think you solved one aspect of this and answered one question, two more pop up. Almost I don't want to say it's, one step forward, two steps back, because that's not the case, but almost a 2 steps forward, 1 step back, where you're solving these things, but then more comes along in a good way. That it's a very layered game, I think, in a lot of sense or aspects of it, which to me, somebody who loves narrative-based games, loves these, I would even say immersive sims, if you want to call them that, and even to a degree, like, people may call this a walking simulator because there's no combat or anything like that. To me, it's interactive. To me, it's these interactive stories more so that are being told that I think are really good. And we're in a really good time in games right now that there's so many of them, including this. And I really enjoyed it from that aspect. As somebody who played primarily in the passenger seat this time, getting to have that role that you've played at times whenever we're playing, like right now we're playing the Tomb Raider game, or the first Tomb Raider game from the rebooted trilogy that, you're like, you play. I want to watch you play this. Like, or Uncharted, or, these bombastic games like you're talking about that you like to watch, it's much more like a movie that, having that experience this time around in the passenger seat, watching you solve puzzles, or, you leaning on me to be like, oh, what do you think about this? Like, it was really fun. Like, and I wanted to keep seeing where it went. Like, there were so many aspects of that. But I guess since we're talking about puzzles then, And that's a big element of this game. Did you ever find really any of the puzzles difficult to the extent of being even like unreasonable? Like, you know, with like did it detract from you, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. Is like did it become to the point where some of these puzzles that you were like, what the fuck am I doing? What am I like, why am I doing this? Why am I like, this makes no sense, yada yada. Like, did that detract from your enjoyment of the game at all? Were there any that you just like, you know, obviously are going to be tough, that's the point of it. They want you to think about it and tackle, you know, the game in a certain way, or, you know, find your own way to tackle that puzzle, but at the same time that could also be tedious for tedious sake, and that's just not fun. Video games are supposed to be fun at the end of the day.
I thought that all of the puzzles were meaningful. Like, there wasn't any that you were just doing just to do or to be tedious or anything. And I think that, you know, there was 6 chapters, I believe, and then an epilogue. But, you know, chapter 1, the puzzles are, like, not that hard, you know? And then you just keep progressing. And they did get really difficult, but I don't think anything that deterred me from playing the game. They weren't that hard. In fact, I felt like after I solved some of them, I felt pretty smart.
Yeah.
But there was only one puzzle that I came across that I just got stuck on, and I needed some assistance with that puzzle, and I still didn't really understand it, but I have a feeling if I were to go back and play that puzzle, I would have been like, oh, that's right in front of me, or something I just overlooked. But I mean, really, other than the one puzzle that I'm thinking of, they were all difficult, but nothing that was unmanageable, I would say. So no, I really liked it. I didn't, you know, you have your moments of frustration where, you know, it did get a little difficult, but nothing that made me want to stop playing. It made me want to keep going and see what other puzzles there were.
Right. Yeah. And I remember you getting stuck on that one and kind of being like, and me being like, and I say this all the time, like, one, there's nothing wrong with what's been called baby mode, like playing games on really easy or whatever. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. And I put in the same regard as that, using a guide. Like, whatever makes the game enjoyable for you, like, there's nothing wrong with. So I was like, you know, asking you, like, would you want me to look it up, or did you want to look it up? No, and you're saying, no, I want to figure it out, which I'm the same way. I don't want to yet, like, but then after a while, I could tell you were at a point where it's like, this isn't fun. Like, this is just annoying.
Yeah, I tried everything in my mind that I thought
could
work.
And I think that's the point of a lot of puzzle games, where it's like, not to the extent of, oh, we want to push you till you can't, like, do this anymore or whatever, but more so, like, I don't think there's anything wrong with, I mean, you think of a puzzle in general, like, you're seeing what the picture is, you're knowing what the picture is, how do you get that? Like, you know what I mean? Like, you're supposed to look at the box, you're supposed to get hints or what, you know, it's built off stuff like that. So, like, there's nothing wrong, in my opinion, using guides. So, like, but you were like, no, just, you could look it up, but give me hints. Like, tell me how many I got right. Or, like, you know.
Yeah, but there was no, for that puzzle, I don't know who's ever listening, if you've played this or going to, I'm not giving much away, but it was the organ puzzle. And maybe some of you out there thought that one was the easiest, and there was just something that I was completely not seeing or overlooking. But I tried everything that I thought it could be, and you know, the only thing, which I know this is how most games are, is that you took notes. Nora took notes throughout your time there. You found different letters on the island from the people that were on the expedition, and you had to put 2 and 2 together and try to solve what they solved. So all you had were your notes that were vague, and then the organ in front of you, and you had to go from that. And just me interpreting the notes, I guess I didn't interpret them the right way, and I kept asking for hints, but just wasn't really a way to give hints without giving it away, just because it was complex.
Mm-hmm.
So once we did solve it and I did find the answer, I still kind of looked at the puzzle and was like, I don't know how they got this, but it's probably something that I overlooked. But, you know, to reference good old Nancy Drew, the one thing I really liked about those games is that you could always click a button in game that would give you a hint, but like you'd only have that many hints. It couldn't be like, so I kind of just wish, I guess my suggestion for that, I kind of wish I could have pressed the old Nancy Drew hint, because I don't see a problem with looking things up either. Yeah. But I just like the whole game, I think I did well and I didn't need it except for that one. So I just wish I could have completed the whole game that way, and I kind of wish I could have gotten a Nancy Drew hint, but... Yeah.
Well, that's... to be honest, maybe it did have that, depending on... I can't even remember, did this have difficulty options? I don't remember. I honestly don't remember whenever we started, but that you're seeing a lot of games now have with this emphasis put on accessibility for, you know, whether it be those who experience physical or emotional disabilities that are, you know, whether it's things for people who are colorblind, who are going blind, who are deaf, who are, you know, different things like that for people who were physically, you know, immobile in some areas, being able to play games. Like, there's more accessibility going into the options within gaming that a lot of games are now putting that in. Like, you're finding more, or even, for example, I know this is an Xbox show, but recently playing, like, Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, in some of the puzzle areas that you have to play, like, you can skip the puzzle. There's just an option that you can just go, boom, skip puzzle. And for this game specifically, that doesn't work because the puzzles are the juxt of, you know, that's the whole point of playing this game, to an extent. Like, that's the gameplay element that, you know, it'd be weird to do that. But point being that, like, there are so many accessibility options that I don't want to say I find it, like, weird that it doesn't have that, but I more so would have been... I by no means would have been shocked if it did. Like, almost to the point where I expected, but yeah, so, like, I guess, you know, you already kind of touched on it a little bit, but, like, obviously you are drawn to Nancy Drew games, you're drawn to mystery games, you're drawn to things like this. I guess, like, what element of this game was your favorite? What was the one thing that sticks out? Because it seems like it's a melting pot kind of game of a lot of things you like, whether it's, you know, the mystery element, the narrative element, the aesthetic, you know, like, what, I guess, of this stood out most to you while playing it? Like, that you leave saying, like, that was my favorite part about this game.
I think it was the story. The story, I know you went into it, but not too deep into it, that Nora, the main character who you are playing as, her husband went to this island on an expedition to find a cure for her illness. And this illness that she has is, you know, it causes her pain. It's expected to make her life short. So he wants to go. He thinks he can find this cure to help her and have her with him longer. And he goes, and she doesn't hear back, so she goes after him. And I just really liked the story. I felt like I wanted to, you know, where is Harry? Where is he? And will she cure her illness? Like, you felt a connection to her. Like, I hope she finds this cure, you know, and everything. And then, not to I don't want to spoil anything, but when you get to the end, there's multiple different endings, and I guess just the one that I chose, which I believe was the right, in my mind, there is no right or wrong answer, but just what I thought the best ending was. I feel like I kept thinking about that, like, you know, if I was in Nora's shoes, would that be the choice? Would I have done that? Would that have been, you know, what I would have done, and I guess that makes for a good storyline and a good game because it makes you really think.
So you kind of saying that, and I'll jump forward to this because I was obviously going to ask you later, but since you're talking about the ending now, like, did you find it satisfying, like, what you got out of it? Like, do you think both options you obviously know what happens on both ends, whatever decisions you make, do you think both are satisfying? I know you're saying, like, it's good that a lot of games are becoming that have some decision, aspects to it, that a lot of games that are doing that now are making it more the game's narrative more tailored to your experience, I guess, and like what you want out of it, where there's no canonical ending, or like, yeah, you could do whatever ending you want, but this is like the true ending of the game. This is what the developers envisioned or whatever. Did you feel like either one of those endings, and obviously we want people to play this game, so like I'm sure you don't want to tell people what happens, but like, either ending that you do get, do you feel that there was a disconnect between either of them? Like, this was just put in to be put in, or this is clearly the right choice, but like, did both seem satisfying in their own regard, whatever players would choose?
Yes, at the end, in vague details, after you go through everything in the game and you get to the epilogue, you just kind of have an explanation of everything that's going on and what happened and where people ended up and things like that. And your final move in the game is you're standing in between two doors. The one door gives you one option to end the game, and the other door gives you the other option, and you kind of have to look back and forth and choose to open the door of the ending that you want. The ending that you choose is kind of like what plays during the credits. And I only visually went through the one that I chose. Like, we didn't go back and choose the other one or anything. So I didn't get to see what the credits looked like with that one.
Oh, okay. I thought you did.
No, but I did look it up. I was I was curious.
Right. I knew that you knew what happened though.
And the credit scene itself wasn't very different. Like, there were some differences between the two that you would have chosen given on what I read, but they weren't that big of a difference. But I don't know. I think it was just one of those endings that it makes you, because you did connect with Nora, and it makes you think about maybe what you would have chosen. It was more a decision, like, you would have thought, okay, is that a good moral decision, or did she end up how I wanted her to end up because I had a connection with her? So it wasn't more like visually what the ending looked like. I guess it's just what it made you think or feel, or how you felt about the characters.
So you did connect with Nora, like you did. Do you think she is a compelling protagonist? Do you think she was, like, I don't want to say like the whole story hung on her or whatever, like every element, but like, do you feel like she, since you're in her shoes the whole time and she isn't a silent protagonist, she is talking all the time, she's going through all this stuff, like, you were very much in her shoes, you're not playing somebody who's just dropped into this island or whatever and trying to get out, and you're deciphering everything in your own head, like, you're living through her shoes. So do you think her actions, her portrayal, her, desires, her, going through this narrative make her a good protagonist? Like, did you feel good about playing as her, and do you think she helped make the story, or, your experience with the game that much better?
Yeah, I did like her, and I think that because of the connection, you really thought about the decision you had to make at the end, which I guess was the goal. She wasn't the best protagonist like I've ever dealt with or anything like that, and it's just her on the island, and she's making these comments, and but I guess the only thing that I felt from her was, as you're playing her, you want to find this cure. Like, you connect with her and you hope the best for her, I guess, if that's what you could say. You hope that they find the cure and it does help her, just because, I mean, you're playing her, so you're hoping the best for you. But no, I thought, there was some times where maybe some of her comments were a little annoying.
Yeah.
They're very vintage, Great Scott and things like that. But no, I think that there was just enough connection there that it made you want to keep going and, find her husband and find the cure. And then it made you want to choose the best thing for her at the end. Mm-hmm. So.
No, I agree. Like, she definitely, granted, you play a game long enough or you are in that person's shoes long enough, sometimes it's just natural with some of the voice lines they have that it does kind of get annoying. And, obviously we're not talking about a game that's on this large-scale, multi-million-dollar AAA budget that we're seeing from a lot of third-party, like, large-scale publishers. But, so some lines are reused and, every time you interact with something, it's the same line being said, and sometimes you have to interact with things multiple times to figure it out or whatever. So, like, I do agree, yeah, that can get kind of on my nerves at times. It's like, and then I start saying it myself, like, in a joking manner where I'm sitting there, oh, Bean, like, stuff like that. And then I get on your nerves.
Like that all the time, though.
Right.
Like Great Scott.
Yeah, exactly.
You're the bee's knees.
Exactly. But yeah, I guess, like, really to wrap it up on that end, just with everything, just because I feel like we kind of went through the game. It's not a very long game. We played it only a handful of times. Like, I'd say it's probably like 4 hours.
Yeah, I mean, there's 6 chapters. Some are shorter than the other ones, but I guess it really depends on how fast you solve the puzzles too, the timing. But I mean, we did it in chunks, but realistically, if you had all day, you could sit and just knock it out.
Oh yeah, I definitely wouldn't even say all day. I would say, like, if you have a free night, like if you played, like, if that's what you did one evening from 7 to 11 or whatever like that, I think it's very achievable to sit down and play this game, like, in one sitting. Now, granted, not a lot of people do that, and to play one game that's like this for that long is different. It's one thing if you're playing a multiplayer game or something like that, and it's new experiences every time you play it, but this is the same, it's some games like this are tough to, specific indie games and things like that are kind of tough to sit there and play in one sitting. It is easier to break up, but you could easily do it in one sitting. But yeah, overall, I liked it. I thought it was good. I think you really liked it. I think it was very up your alley.
Yes, it definitely was. The vintage detective is up my alley in anything. So.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And this is on Game Pass. Remember, Game Pass, that's what we are.
I did know that. I did reference it.
You did.
So, my parting words is that you should play this game.
There you go.
And my other parting words, even though this is not on Game Pass, is that you should
play Nancy Drew.
Not the newest one. That's a whole other story.
Oh.
But my last parting words to you, Travis, are will you invite me back to talk about Bug Snacks?
Yes, eventually.
Okay, because that could be like a 2-hour show.
Yeah, right, that may be a thing we just put out on its own.
Okay.
Right. Well, thank you, Molly.
You're welcome.
Coming on there. And thank you again to Molly for coming on to the show and talking about a game that we both really enjoyed playing, Call of the Sea. I really did enjoy playing it. It was cool to actually sit in the driver's seat and kind of, like I said, sit there and enjoy the game and give my 2 cents, what I thought about different puzzles or, from that aspect, because usually it is flipped, and usually I'm the one kind of, the analogy I use, steering the ship, and she's giving me the directions type of thing. So it was really cool to actually be able to do that from that point, and watching her kind of figure out the game as it goes, the puzzles, see her thought process on that. It's just she's really such an intelligent person, and it's really interesting to see how she tackles certain puzzles compared to how I would. So it was just really fun. It was another great game that we got to play, and I'm glad she was able to talk about it. But let's wrap up the episode, and of course we're going to wrap it up with Party Chat. So if you're new to the show this week, Party Chat is where usually both of us, but this week I propose one question at the end of the week, or end of this week's show, if I could spit it out. Come on, Travis. That we want to discuss. Could be as simple as, what's your favorite story beat in the game? What are you playing right now? Things like that, or it could be a little bit more in depth. It is a long week. Holy hell, man. It is. I'm tongue-tied all over the place. I'm even tongue-tied saying tongue-tied. Anyways, though, could be a little more in depth as to, talking about negative mental health stigmas and things like that in games. So after we answer it ourselves, we kick it over to you to tweet your responses or email us your responses over on our Twitter or our email at gpgcpodcast or bonusaccessory@gmail.com. And we'll read some of the responses the following week. Last week's question: what is your big prediction for Xbox's E3 2022 press conference as of right now in June 2021? And John P. emailed us in saying Starfield's release date is bumped from its November 2022 release date until March. So I hope not, because I'm really excited to play that game. I'm actually starting, I tweeted about the other day, I'm starting to, I think my plan is I'm going to try to either 1K Platinum, get all the achievements, whatever you want to, whatever platform I do it on, all of the Bethesda Game Studios developed games, the Bethesda proper games developed, get a full 1,000 achievements or, Platinum or whatever you want to call it, depending on the platform, get all of the achievements, trophies, whatever, in all of them leading up to Starfield, starting with Oblivion, which is weird to say. I put hundreds, thousands probably of hours into that game, and I don't think I ever got all the achievements, either on my original Xbox profile or my newer one, since I got locked out of that one for some reason. I made a new one, a handful of years ago, and I know I don't have it on there because usually now when I play the game, I play it on PC. So I want to go back and do that and get all of those, then move into Fallout 3, then Skyrim, and then Fallout 4. So I hope not. But at the same time, too, it probably would give me a little more room to make sure that happens with all the other games I play. So we'll see. But anyways, fingers crossed that doesn't happen, because I'm really excited about Starfield. It's one of my most anticipated, if not most anticipated game right now. So anyways, though, this week's question, though, how long do you see Microsoft supporting game streaming on the Xbox One family of systems? This comes off of the news that we got last week saying, hey, we're going to be supporting, Microsoft saying, hey, we're supporting, game streaming, xCloud, whatever you want to call it, on Xbox One systems as well. And it seemed to be a lot of people saying, hey, so that's the solution they're going to take to handling the, taking that family of systems into the future and wanting to support those and make that crossover period, much easier for a lot of people, where they can still play all of these games that come out for Xbox, where they're building on this idea of an Xbox ecosystem, an Xbox platform, just like PC gaming, where you have different tiers of how you want it. It's all modular to how you want to tailor your experience. And I think that is really interesting and really smart, to be quite honest. And hopefully that lines up well with 5G obviously becoming more available and different things like that, yada, yada. So, but how long do you see Microsoft supporting that with Xbox One systems? And really, I guess, how long do you see them supporting the Xbox One? But I honestly think that we're not going to, I think this will be more for the initial rush of these big tentpole first-party games that Microsoft's been building towards for really 2017, 2018. So I think it's really going to focus on the initial first rush of those to make sure those people who were there in the trenches with Microsoft, quote unquote, during their, rebound years or their, the come up type of thing that people could talk about, and seeing we're there from day one when Microsoft started building this plan and kind of, bringing it up. And, I think it's really for those in mind. I mean, I'm sure they're saying obviously too, hey, we can get Game Pass, we can make sure we're good with Game Pass subscriptions and stuff like that, and more money to make on that, obviously. But it is a way to keep those people in. And I think it's really targeted towards the Fables, the Perfect Darks, maybe Avowed. So those type of experiences, I think, do I think we see it for Elder Scrolls 6? Maybe, but if it's game streaming, who knows? That might be, they could support that forever. But I think it's more built for that first initial rush of games that we'll see. And that also depends when the fuck we get Elder Scrolls 6, so who knows? But I definitely think we'll end up probably, I definitely could see us seeing this supported at least until 2024, something like that. Anything sooner than that, I think is crazy, but I think this is something we'll see for at least a handful of years here to get once, obviously, I mean, Series X's and S's aren't necessarily super available. Series S's seem to start to be popping up in more actual like physical stores now too, which is good. But Series X's, even, obviously PS5s and stuff like that too, like both are ridiculously hard to come by and there's shortages still and stuff like that. So I think this is going to help bridge that gap as well and help resolve a lot of, issues on getting like fulfillment issues and things like that. So we'll see, but I definitely think any time before 2024 is crazy, just to see and get that initial first rush. Then after that, because we'll probably start to look at maybe a mid-gen refresh, something like that. Who knows? Similar to a 1X type of system for both of these, systems. Who knows? So we'll have to go from there. But I definitely think it's somewhere right around there. At least we're going to see support for this for the initial first half of this system's life, until we get to the back 9 probably. But anyways, though, that's going to be it for our episode this week. I'll tell you where you can find me at since Mike isn't here. But as always, I'm your host, Travis White, aka Travelus, on most internet platforms, including at Travelus_ on Twitter. That's TRAVLESS_ on Twitter. You can also find me streaming time to time on twitch.tv/Travelus_, same as Twitter, obviously. And if you want to play some video games with me over on Xbox, you can do so on Xbox Live at just regular old Travelus, TRAVLESS. And this, ladies and gentlemen, has been your newest episode of the Game Pass Gamecast, your weekly go-to podcast for all things Xbox Game Pass, and PC gaming, including news, rumors, and conversation around them damn good video games. You can catch new episodes of the show when they drop each and every Friday morning on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, and all other major podcast services. So be sure to subscribe to us, rate us, review us, all that jazz wherever you get a podcast at, the whole rigmarole I tell you every week, and follow us on Twitter at GPGC Podcast. Stay up to date with everything regarding the show, video games like, and our dope giveaways. With that being said, that's it for our episode this week. Thank you everyone so much for listening, sharing, and being a part of our growing community. Game on, listen to the doctors, Black Lives Matter, and we will see you next week.